Hello everybody, welcome back. It's the 13th day of January. It's 2025. Hope everybody's doing okay. You can call in to these shows. I'm Dana at 709. We're in Canada. It's 709-589 4406 709-589-4406. Away we go. Rock and roll. We got a poll for everybody tonight. Did Fukushima radioactive fallout poison all men, women, kids, mammals, animals, insects, birds, etc., etc., etc. on Earth? And we're going to do that poll every day for the rest of my life. That's the same poll. It's never going to change. If you're going to censor me, I'm going to give you something to censor me about. And until you stop censoring me, then I'm going to keep that poll. They got the wildfires down in California. Really something, aren't they? And I've been thinking about it, of course, that if they wanted to stop the wildfires, during the Vietnam War, they made it rain over the Ho Chi Minh Trail during the monsoons for an extra 3 months through cloud seeding. It's a technique. There's 135 ski resorts cloud seed in the wintertime to produce snow. They have licenses to actually go up and cloud seed. They do it all over the world. So if they really wanted to stop the fires in California, all they had to do was send up a few planes to start producing clouds and rain. But there's another thing about that going on. I just want to show you another problem that I found. So think about the fires, how intensive the fires are burning. Very intensive fires, right? Incredible fires. Think about how big of an area that they burn. These are massive areas at the one time. And then think about after the fire in those particular areas have burnt out, you're left with just white ash, which is extraordinary. Nothing's covered in soot. And why are there trees everywhere? And plastic. So the trees and plastic didn't burn, but see all the black spots, that's trees. And all the buildings are burnt totally all the way to the ground, 100% razed, which shows you the intensity of the heat, right? So it's called, that's what you would see after the directed energy weapon type. I'm not going to call it a directed energy weapon because there's different variations now. This technology is well known. It's been around for a very long time. Sam Altman has got a lawsuit from his sister, who he's been molesting and raping since she was 3 years old. He's promoting small modular reactor stocks, right? The industry is using him as their poster boy. What is he going to do now, I wonder? Before we get in, that's been the first story we're going to cover tonight. We've got a couple other stories we're going to cover first that I'm going to cover every single night from here on out because I'm censored. But today's news cycle, how Canada supplied uranium for the Manhattan Project. I was reading this story a couple of days ago and it terrified me. We'll get to the story in a few minutes. It was soon considered an all-powerful, the time about radium. They were extracting radium. They need 6 tons of radium to get a gram of 6 tons of pitch to get a gram of radium. When you're talking about a uranium pellet is equal to 2 tons of something, consider it takes 6 tons to get a gram. It was soon considered an all-powerful health tonic for some reason. It was used allegedly. They discovered in 1898 radium was put to use in cancer therapy right away. And look at the word therapy. Should terrify you. And it was added to everything from chocolates. Imagine putting a poison that they knew was a poison. Madame Curie, who invented it, discovered it, and her husband lost both of her hands because it's not like a banana or a potato chip or a chocolate. And they were putting it in chocolate. It was considered a health tonic. How can the industry even exist after doing that to humanity, I wonder? And the community that was producing it here in Canada had the grim nickname the Village of Widows, because it's like a banana and a potato chip and walking in the sunshine. So my last video got skunked again. When the show was over, it had 15 views. I've been doing the show for a decade, I suppose. Not long enough to build up any kind of audience, right? And they added, it was a minute 3:49. They added another 6 seconds to it, which is pretty typical of all my videos. But when I've seen it on other live streams, ever, we don't see that particular attribute. My comments don't show up for 12 hours. We don't see that on any other live stream. I'm censored so much, it's just like I don't even exist. At 22 hours, I had 103 views. It took, the next day I never got a single view. Well, that's a lie. I guess I had 100 views by 24 hours. And then I never got another, well, I got one view in the next 24 hours. It went from 100 views to 101 views after 24 hours. Carbon-free nuclear. Look how carbon-free this stuff is. Nuclear is so carbon-free, it's just like, these people are insane. Hinkley Point, of course, that's the model of Hinkley Point. Very, very deceiving, isn't it? Surrounded by farms. They always like to show you that because that's all nuclear power plants are surrounded by farms. And when you look at it from a satellite, like typical nuclear power plant, this is Sellafield. They changed the name to Windscale because of the mixed oxide fuel meltdown, the plutonium mixed oxide reactor meltdown. But when you look at it from a satellite picture, it's farms as far as you can see. If you do that with every nuclear power plant, you'll see that 99% almost of them are surrounded by farms as far as you can see. They can't contain the radiation from the fuel pools, right? It's still splitting atoms for millions of years. And so they need to move the radiation from the local area, and then they poison you with it. This is engineered in all nuclear power plants, is poison you in the supermarket. Is that really an industry we want on this planet? And of course, poison all water. I think their intentions from the get-go was to poison all water on this planet. Because water is life. Without water, we don't have life. Everybody has to drink water, and that's the quickest way besides food to poison you, isn't it? I mean, you know, the Great Lakes here in Canada, North America, United States, Canada, are surrounded by nuclear plants on both sides, Canada and the United States, and nuclear dumps and nuclear fuel-making sites. The most polluting sites conceivable are right on the shores of the Great Lakes, the third biggest aquifer fresh water on the planet. So when they call Hinkley Point carbon-free and net zero, that's some dangerous narrative. That's a very dangerous narrative to suggest that, I mean, every scrap, and it's hard to appreciate how big this site actually is. They don't really show you a full picture. But everything on this site is inspected 3 times. And you need 2 gas, oil, and coal plants. One, say 2 gas or 1 oil and 1 coal plant, or at least 2 plants to run this site. To build this site, you can imagine how much electricity it takes just to do all of this for 20 years. And then to run it, you still need to dedicate. I mean, each reactor, they have multiple reactors on these sites. Each reactor needs 4,500 one-ton pickup trucks of water, 1 million gallons of water per minute. Per minute, every minute. 1,440 minutes in a day. So imagine you stood in front of your house, there's 4,500 one-ton pickup trucks race past you every minute. So how much energy does it take to produce that? Get it? So, you're talking about 2 gas, oil, coal plants just to run a nuclear site. They can't use their own energy. And they need the same energy as a fairly big community. Beset by huge delays, environmental disputes and costs, to the point where it's now expected to become the most expensive project, not just nuclear, but the most expensive project of its kind ever built anywhere on the planet. No. It's carbon-free, Dana. These are incredible disease factories once they're up and running on top of that. They have 8 miles of tunnels. It's hard to appreciate how big these ships are when you see these pictures like that. When you get close to them, you start to realize the word carbon-free is not applicable in any shape or any form whatsoever when it comes to nuclear. And it's the most resource-intensive industry in human history on top of that. So when you see these pictures, it's hard to appreciate what we're talking about until you see that picture. It's hard to appreciate when they say carbon-free, you don't see pictures of this. They're not going to show you that picture and go, it's carbon-free. Because you're going to call them out on it, right? I can't remember what that's all about. I missed you folks. I hope you're doing good. I was pretty burnt out last night. I couldn't do a show. Standing levels of radiation measured in the United States after Fukushima at 500,000 times the normal levels. There is no normal level, by the way. And so, assessment of individual external exposures, doses. This is a study came out last week. We covered it. The whole show is dedicated just to this one story, by the way. And tomorrow or next day, we got another similar story to cover, an academic study. Assessment from the Union of Unconcerned Scientists. Assessments of individual external exposure doses are based on environmental radiation in areas affected by the Fukushima. I actually got an email a while back about that. I keep forgetting to mention it. Because the Union of Concerned Scientists, I don't see that. I can't appreciate why they're calling themselves that. They were created by the Manhattan Project, by the way, scientists from that nightmare. I call them the Union of Unconcerned Scientists because that's who they actually are. They're the industry. They're the disgusting goblins. And I actually got an email asking me not to do it, and I sent them back a reply and asked them to call me, and they wouldn't call me, of course. External exposure. So Fukushima, this was a study that just came out. This is what they're using to quantify feeding people radioactive food around the world from the nuclear wasteland and moving people back into the nuclear wasteland. And this is the sluts and the bastards that produced the study. Excuse the Canadian coming out of me. For internal doses, I got no matches whatsoever. For external doses, the top of the page was 46 mentions of external, like you see behind me. External. And natural radiation. There's endless studies out there showing massive different isotopes. But the study was only based on natural. It didn't mention cesium, uranium, iodine, or nothing. It only mentioned natural radiation. And this is what they're utilizing. And this is sanctioned, by the way, by the International Atomic Energy Agency, the enemy of humanity. Assessment of individual external. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, obviously, because it took me 2 hours to go through it in a single show to explain it, to break it down. But look at what they're doing with the words external. They're not studying internal doses, just external doses. And using that to quantify bringing tourists into the nuclear wasteland and the most vulnerable of society, the women and the children. Females are 4 times more vulnerable to anthropogenic man-made radiation than men are, or boys are. And so the quickest way to exterminate the species is a weapon that attacks females 4 times more viciously and more often, rather, than the males. And so the quickest way to deplete a population is to sterilize the females or just wipe them out, right? And that's what radiation is particularly good at. and children. Radioactive cesium reported in the Kellogg cereals from Japan, almost 20 becquerels per kilogram. So 11 atoms a kilogram slash becquerels. Children start to see heart problems. And so suggesting that it was only external doses is absurd, right? Because you got so many reports. There was 14,000 U.S. deaths in the United States after Fukushima from the fallout. They were breathing it in and eating it in their foods, right? That's internal doses. But yet the actual academic studies from Japan refused to acknowledge there was internal doses. And this was a study. This is the official study that is used. This is what he censored me on my last video, and this is what they're going to censor me on this one. And the next one and the one after, because I'm going to show this one at every single one. If they're going to censor me, I might as well give them a good reason to. They can thank Calm Down Charlie for that one. External exposures. But yet there was 865,000 extra cancers in the first year. That's not from external, that was internal. Yeah, some's external, I'm sure. But it's because cancer is typically latent, right? It shows up later. So 865,000 in 2012. Not everybody got health care, not everybody was diagnosed. So refusing to acknowledge that there was internal doses, these people should be getting the death penalty, right? Japan should hold them accountable, but the country's 100% corrupt now because of the nuclear industry. Same as Canada, same as the United States. 100% corrupt because the nuclear industry can't exist unless everything is stacked against you. 35.8% of the Fukushima children have tumors. Used to be 1 in a million, not 13,646 out of 38,000. It used to be 1 in a million pre-Fukushima. They didn't get that from external doses of natural radiation. They got it from internal doses of anthropogenic man-made radiation. So it's very offensive that they would come out with that study and use that to quantify destroying millions and millions and hundreds of millions and billions ultimately of people around the world. External exposures. I mean, despicable, subhuman. This is just a group of people. They should be held accountable. You can hold them accountable. I can hold them accountable just by talking about it. Predict individual external exposure doses and natural radiation after multiple nuclear meltdowns. How can you ever trust a scientist of any discipline? Because not one of any discipline has spoken up in the last 7 or 8 years. There was some dissenting voices originally. Radiation dose was 50 times higher than the total of 3 other plutonium isotopes. They did not reveal the plutonium-241 detections, and neither the study refused to acknowledge any man-made radiation whatsoever. Never mentioned a single time in a study. Never mentioned the word internal radiation a single time in a study. A mystery black substance not yet measured, possibly 20 million atoms of cesium. But yet the studies didn't acknowledge any radiation. We have a revolting amount of documentation of radioactive fallout and the harm. And this study ignored everything and produced this study to quantify genocide against everybody on this planet. When is this planet going to grow a set? Do you really think that you're immune to this? Do you really think that this is not going to destroy your health and your loved ones and your friends and your families? Are you really that gullible and naive? Individual external exposures. External. The average person in Seattle was breathing in 10 hot particles, breathing it in, but yet in Japan it was nothing but external exposures. Every organism in Fukushima Prefecture is contaminated with at least 1.4 million atoms a kilogram. That was coming out of the worms' feces, for goodness sakes. 60 kilometers from the never-ending nuclear meltdowns. Everything got internal those massive, hideous, monstrous internal doses. And so for a bunch of people to do a study and only acknowledged external doses, I just can't sit in silence. I just can't do it. The rest of the world can do it. I can't do it. There's less than a handful, 5 people that I know of that are honest, or they're talking about this. Less than a handful. So the industry is laughing. It's evil arse off. And all you got to do is learn, work out. If you don't speak up, who do you blame in the near future? Like, it's not easy, I know that, okay? I've been doing this for too long, and that's just my life now, which is awesome, by the way. I would rather do this than not, because we desperately need someone to be speaking, but I'm not the healthiest person, right? I spend 5 hours a day, 5 hours in the cold, outdoors, changing winch on the quad. So we got that back to normal. That was torture. It was just torture. But we got it done, so that was awesome. But it was torture trying to get it done. And the industry must get a kick out of stuff like that, right? But it only makes me tougher, I think. That's the better way to look at it. And I ordered in an extra, so I got another one coming in, and I ordered in another one already for the skidoo, right? And we got snow today. It's not enough to take the skidoo, but by the end of the month now, there'll be enough snow to go every day. I've just got to get everything finished, right? I got a winch coming in. The next winch comes in, goes on the small trailer, and the next one goes on the skidoo. And I'm probably going to pick up one more for the other trailer. Because you can drive a quad up on your trailers, no problem. But a skidoo might fight you. And what do you do if you can't get it on the trailer because you haven't got the right conditions? I guarantee you, I'm not healthy enough to deal with that, so I'm not going to. I'm going to make sure I got a winch to pull that skidoo on the trailer. Because we'll be looking for species and tracks. I know we're not going to find it, but we got to go look. Hopefully we find lots, don't get me wrong, but I don't live illusions, unfortunately. How Canada supplied uranium for the Manhattan projects. The story totally caught me off guard. Because it's from the government mouthpiece itself. So did they read, there's lots they didn't mention, but you can read between the lines. It was soon considered an all-powerful health tonic and added to everything from chocolates to glow-in-the-dark paint. We'll get to that coming up here. I put that in 2 places. That part. Ore mined in the Northwest Territory was transported to Port Hope, Ontario. We talked about that a lot over the years. Port Hope. Then used to develop the bomb. That, and then they just leave it there. They don't have anything else to follow up with it. That. Canada's significant role in the creation of atomic bomb left communities dealing with the fallout. Nuclear energy has been regaining popularity as a hedge against climate change. Again, we're seeing that connotation, right? But there was 660 gigawatts of solar alone came online last year, which is equal to 700 large nuclear plants coming online in 12 months. But the nuclear, there was more went offline than came online, so nuclear went back again. 13 years in a row? There is no nuclear renaissance. There's no fusion. There's no small modular reactors. They're hoodwinking you to get you to buy stocks so they can steal your money 2 weeks later. That's what they're doing, right? And yet the story of Canada's nuclear legacy and our connection to the bombs that the United States military dropped in the Japanese city Hiroshima and Nagasaki, killing tens of thousands, it was hundreds of thousands with the radioactive fallout was put in the equation, in an instant is rarely told, and not even told in this article, is it? The documentary Atomic Reaction examines the impact of radioactive material mined in the community in Northwest Territory, Canada in the 30s and 40s, the dirty 30s and 40s. That radioactive ore was transported thousands of kilometers south via the Canada's Atomic Highway. Canada's Atomic Highway, man. There's nothing too evil for this industry, I can tell you that much. To be refined in Port Hope. And calling this place Port Hope is just sickening. It's just sickening he done that. And the uranium was used in the Manhattan Project, which developed these atomic bombs. It really blows my mind when I'm putting this stuff together of how sinister each of these individuals are. And the authors who write the story, how sadistic they must be to omit and to ignore the stuff that they do. You really got to be some sick, disgusting parasites. The site on the traditional land came to be known as Port Radium. Port Radium. Again, these are, I've never heard of this before, the Atomic Highway, Port Radium. This is the guy who discovered a rich deposit of radioactive pitchblende ore in the Northwest Territories and would eventually be used to supply uranium to the Manhattan Project. Ain't that an interesting part of history I didn't know about? The El Dorado, I probably do, but I just can't remember. The El Dorado mine would first produce medical and industrial radium. So they discovered this very harmful stuff and they decided to stick it into people right away. This what when I say this industry, the whole legacy is predicated upon predatory industrial radium. Discovered in 1898, radium was first put to use in cancer therapy. So this. So when you use radiation therapy, and by the way, this never worked. And so for whoever wrote the story to call it the therapy, you really like to grab him by the head and take him down to the cancer department at the hospital, make them sit there and watch these people that they're creating. Plenty of time because that'll probably give them the jollies if you do that for them. You can't use radiation for a therapy when the cancer is what is caused by radiation in the first place. Then you use cancer to destroy him is probably the most demented, sadistic, twisted things about this industry. They're actual monsters. They're unequivocal monsters. To put radiation into a human or an animal. That's the most monstrous, the cruelest thing you can do to somebody. And it's not illegal, right? The Congress and parliaments don't have the authority to make it illegal. Right? Only the Nuclear Regulatory Commission has the authority to make it illegal to murder you with radiation, and they're not going to do it. And even if they do it, the next administration is going to retract it, right? It was... In 1898, it was used in cancer genocides, and because of its success, it was soon considered an all-powerful health tonic. Because of its success, it didn't have no success. It has no success today. How could it have success back then? When I say monsters, I really do mean these are monsters. You should never look at them any other way. It was soon considered an all-powerful health tonic, and added to everything from chocolates to glow-in-the-dark paint. Everything. Not just chocolates and glow-in-the-dark paint, but everything. It was radium soap, radium toothpaste, radium razors. You had radium makeup, radium lipstick, radium eyeshadow. They had radium suppositories. They had radium water. And the harm for that is epic. They had radium polish. It's so it breaks my heart when I read these stories because I read so much and I cover so much. It really, I find it really difficult, right? Because I'm not going to ramble on for hours and hours every time. Calling them monsters doesn't seem to do it justice for some reason. But let me just give you a little taste of this radium nightmare. Radium Spray Company. This is why I would never buy an antique. It was a liquid cleaner and polisher, which is not. Look, you can use water as a liquid cleaner and polisher, right? Radium spray, a liquid cleaner and polisher, a dust layer, disinfectant, deodorizer, and assured death to flies, mosquitoes, roaches, bed bugs, fleas, hog lice, your loved ones, you. Will polish and clean furniture, buggies, automobiles. That's why you can't buy an antique automobile. They would have used it back then. Everybody was using it. This was a genocide machine in overdrive. Automobiles, marble, tile, brass, nickel, carpets, rugs, matting, and because it's got a 5,500 year half-life, 55,000 year lifespan, it's going to still be there. Rugs, matting, parts of machinery, typewriters, cash registers, and many other things not mentioned. No shit, Batman. But they were using it for everything. So anything from that era, it's better to err on the side of safety and get rid of it if you have it. Doctor says radium stops the agony of rheumatism and get a $5,000 reward if it fails. Yeah, but what it does, it kills you. Like the radium hand wash, radium soap. My goodness, boy. Radium heaters, where you sit there and get radiated and you die. Radium chocolates, look at that. The radium water, where they had these radium jugs. If you had them now and you put them, say, in a scientist's home, they would call the cops on you. You'd be charged for it. Here's to your health, here's to your death is more like it. There's so many examples of it. But, I mean, they target the children, too, with radium lipstick and radium makeup for children, radium kits for children to play with. This is an industry that has to go, because if not, then every species goes. It can't coexist with anybody. Radium razors, radium foot warmers. Can you imagine that? How sadistic it is to do something like that? Radium hand cleaner. Let's get back to the story. So when they says because of success, it was a success in genocide. These are monsters. How come I only got 11 thumbs up? They got me restricted, incredibly restricted, eh? But, I know everybody can't donate to me, but at least give me a thumbs up. Share the video. First put to use in cancer therapy, and because of its genocide, it was considered an all-powerful genocide machine / health tonic, and added to everything from chocolates. I can't get over that. Port Hope, the town that radiates friendliness. These are monsters. What kind of sadistic monster? Let me see if there's a name on this article so I can at least call him a piece of shit anyway. Peter C. Van Wyck. We've covered that piece of shit before, didn't we? Scumbag. Disgusting parasite. There's so many of them you can't keep up with it. On top of that, there's a whole industry, and it's huge. We're talking tens of millions of people that work full time at being scumbags for the nuclear industry. The town that radiates friendliness. That is some scary shit, man. That they would even say something like that. 1932, El Dorado constructed a radium processing plant in Port Hope, the only such refinery in North America. El Dorado secured an abandoned waterfront factory and hired Marcel Panchon, a former student of radioactivity pioneer Marie and Pierre Curie, to mass-produce radium. And by 1936, the first grams of radium had been produced. More than 6 tons of pitch blende are needed to produce a gram of radium. And then they turned it into radium soap and radium toothpaste, radium suppositories, radium makeup, radium chocolates, anything they could to kill you. Can you imagine the evilness, though, of these people? Imagine what their children are like now, their children's children, and the current generation of these little degenerate monsters, inbreeds are. Uranium, previously considered waste, nuclear waste, from the processing of radium, became a strategic commodity because uranium was a byproduct of the genocide radium. Like, this is some fascinating stuff. I mean, I apologize for injecting my not personal beliefs, but my personal experience with this industry into it. You can't separate it, because evil is evil, and that's simply the way it is. In early 1944, the Canadian government took over the company and made it a Crown Corporation. And since 1944, Canada has been completely taken over by the Secrecy Act with the nuclear industry from the Manhattan Project. They never gave that up, right? A huge amount of money located secretively to this insidious, monstrous organization known as nuclear. In the 1970s, a billboard leading into the town even read, "Beautiful old Port Hope, the town that radiates friendliness." Today, the plant is owned by Camco, one of the world's largest publicly traded uranium companies. Yeah, Canada has got a brutal legacy when it comes to the nuclear industry. I mean, we truly are the scumbag country on the planet. Port Radium quietly reopened. Port Radium. That blows my mind. Camco is sitting in the same shithole right now. A lasting legacy and a massive cleanup. They'll never finish it. You got to dig up all the dead people in that community and decontaminate them. A dark shadow remains after so many residents worked in the mine without being told they were involved in the Manhattan Project. And later, the Donny miners started dying of lung cancer, earning the community of DeLine the grim nickname of the Village of Widows. This is so mad. It's mad, though, isn't it? The Village of Widows. It's so crazy. Just another day in that nut job. The Village of Idiots. Just give me 1 second here. I gotta save a couple of pieces of this because my goodness, why are they so evil? Have we ever covered a story where the nuclear wasn't evil? I don't think we have we? Okay, here we go. We're back. We're back, baby. Not quite. Give me a second here. I'll get there. People in the community still fear and have anxiety about Port Radium's impact on their health. It wasn't until 1975 that the public started to become aware of the problem when St. Mary's Elementary School was abruptly closed. The public school was abruptly closed. All the children it's too late for the children, right? El Dorado had detected gamma radiation. What about neutrons and betas and alphas? You disgusting parasites. In the school's parking lot, and dangerously high levels of the gas in the school. Like, be careful what you're reading there, because these people are notorious liars. The building had unknowingly been built on contaminated fill. Unknowingly. Really. On contaminated fill from El Dorado's operations from 15 years earlier. It wasn't unknowingly built there. Someone made a decision to put it there. And it wasn't done lightly. Someone suggested it. It was a good way to get rid of the fill, right? The leftover waste, the uranium waste from the radium. The whole town was built that way. The building had unknowingly having contempt for them is simply not enough. Having built on contaminated uranium from El Dorado's 15 years earlier, from the radium nightmare that they caused. I can't imagine how many people they killed with just the radium. Radium lipstick, radium makeup, radium suppositories, radium toothpaste, radium hand cream, hand wash, and radium everything. They're putting in chocolates, for goodness sakes. And who's back then? Can you imagine how many kids would just die to get their hands on this? Literally die after getting their hands on that chocolate. So 15 years of students in that school, all of them would end up significantly sick and had passed it on to their children. The school's closure set in motion a flurry of activities. It came to light that the radioactive and chemical waste, estimated roughly 2 million cubic meters, had been dumped directly into the harbor besides the plant. So how are you going to get that back? That's fresh water we're talking about. So all the farms for the next 1,000 miles would have been radiating their food for, even today, have been dumped directly into the harbor besides the plant and ravines around the town and used in constructions of homes and basements. They knew this was toxic. That's just the nature of this beast. They're just evil. There's many other ways they could have got rid of it. No, let's use it everywhere. Yeah, but that's evil. So what? Nothing's changed either about this industry, has it? Driveways, businesses, roads, schools, other public buildings. Properties were surveyed for radiation levels. Several hundred of them were remediated. You can't remediate a nuclear wasteland shit face. And some 100,000 tons of contaminated soil material were relocated to a site at Chalk River, which is a nuclear disaster, right? 2 nuclear meltdowns there. They have 1 million tons dumped at the surface and covered by dirt, which they're calling a repository, a close surface repository. It's actually above the surface, where they have massive rain and snow, so it's guaranteed to wash down into the Ottawa River. Operated by the Atomic Energy of Canada. They were such degenerates. And still, the scope and severity of the contamination was still not fully understood. In 2012, the Minister of Natural Resources announced an investment of $1.28 billion to try to clean up 4,800 public and private properties. No, I'm sorry, that's just for the survey. $1.28 billion to pay off to everybody along the way. This is crazy industry. Today, many sites await cleanup. The waste is still produced and stored at the Port Radium facility. Nuclear stocks surged last year, but are they a buy or a sell in 2025? It was artificially inflated. This was Conference of Parties 28 and 29. So there was 14 of the biggest major investment firms decided they were going to help small modular reactors. And the way to do it for them was help themselves. So what they're doing, rinse and repeat, is every 2 weeks, over a 2-week period, each of these 14 major institutions will buy, some of them will buy 2 or 3 million shares of the small modular reactor companies. And there's lots of them, so they kind of switch around a little bit. But NuScale and Nano is their favorite. And don't buy any shares in small modular reactors. They don't exist. But what they're doing is buying, you got 14 of the biggest financial institutes, banks and that, buying shares in small modular reactor companies, but only holding on to them for a couple of weeks. And then as the stocks rise all of a sudden, mom and pop investors worked all their lives and are retired and trying to make their money go a little further. We'll see the stocks go crazy, so they'll throw their money into it, thinking that, hey, we leave it there for a couple of years and we've got a good retirement. And a week after that, the big companies, the big financial institutions will sell their stocks. They stole the money from the small investors. The bottoms drops out of it. And then they buy back the stocks for dirt cheap, and now they got a big profit left over. Like, we're talking massive profits every 2 or 3 weeks. And we've been telling people here for a long time, but we finally put the whole story together. And I'm just horrified by what they're doing. How they're robbing the most vulnerable of society to promote small modular reactors, which they're not trying to build small modular reactors. They don't have actual licensing applications into the regulatory agencies, which is a pretty long process. They don't have land. They're not putting together a supply network. They're simply not trying to do it. It's simply about robbing everybody. And these people, we got to bring back burning them at the stakes and boiling them in liquids as a deterrent, because that's what these people actually deserve. You're robbing millions of people of their life savings every couple of weeks. You don't deserve to live, okay? You don't deserve to live. And the people that are selling those stocks don't deserve to live. They deserve the harshest penalty human can dish out. Meanwhile, the idea of restarting existing nuclear plants and the promise of a new breed of small modular reactors have attracted a powerful fan base, including Bill Gates, Sam Altman, who's got a lawsuit now for molesting and doing horrific stuff to his sister since she was 3 years old, for goodness sakes. And he's trying to say she's crazy. Well, if you've done something to a young kid for a decade, starting when she's 3 years old, you're damn right she's going to be crazy. So I got this time. I think it's time to change my cloth. This one's getting a little bit. I'm having a hard time. I got one right there. I'll change it out here after. Why Sam Altman backed Oklo surged 101% higher in 2024. Oklo is a small modular reactor manufacturer. The only problem is they're not making them. So they're not a manufacturer, are they? They're focused on developing next-generation nuclear technology, specifically small modular reactors. Well, they're not focused on that. They don't even have applications into the regulatory agency. I haven't even heard a whisper of any of these companies when or if they're going to put an application into the regulatory agency. And that is, when you see that, because we're at it all the time, that it's pretty clear what's going on, right? They utilizes fast neutrons to generate energy from nuclear waste. So in order for that to work, they got to produce a stupid amount of plutonium mixed oxide fuel. That process is one of the biggest polluters on our planet, by the way. And this pollution is permanent. It kills everything with replicating cells. And it covers the whole planet in a very short period of weeks or months. The emissions do. To generate electricity from nuclear waste. And so Sam Altman is promoting that. He's not. He's doing the same thing where he's buying and selling shares every 2 weeks, right? You'll buy a bunch of shares artificially inflated. When people start investing who don't know any better, investing money, he'll cash out, right? And he made a fortune by doing that routine. They're just doing that every 2 or 3 weeks. Like if I didn't have the conscience I got, I'd do the same thing. Because right, you just pay attention, and then you know within 3 weeks it's going to start going back down again. Just sell and then cash in, and 2 weeks, a week later, the shares, the bottom drops out of all the shares. You go in, you buy them dirt cheap, wait a couple of weeks for them to rise back up and do it again. That's what they're doing, right? The 14 biggest financial institutions are doing it too. And because they're able to buy so many shares, it looks like a good deal to the unsuspecting investors. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman accused of decade-long sexual abuse by his sister. For over a decade, I'm not going to go through it because it's pretty despicable. Another reason he made his money because he partnered up with Elon Musk, who's suing him in court now. He created ChatGPT, right? But it was supposed to be free. And this is why he got all the money. And so small modular reactors, evil likes to go where evil is too. So he's gone with the small modular reactors. Mushrooms from the quake-hit Noto fetch a record 350,000 yen at auction. 350,000, which is $2,200. I'm guessing this is a six-pack. For a six-pack, $2,200. Would you eat food from a nuclear wasteland? I hope not. But would you eat mushrooms from which mushrooms are the worst, and bacteria and fungus, rather, are probably worse. But mushrooms in particular are nasty. They're just nasty. Like the mushrooms in Sweden, in Norway, in Denmark, countries like that, are still too radioactive to ever be consumed. 8 students injured in a hammer attack at the university campus in Tokyo. Just another day in Japan, right? Wherever there's kids, there's a stabber or a guy with a hammer close by. That's why Calm Down Charlie lives in North America now. You know, he was a hammer swinger at the kindergarten school at some point. Lawsuit challenges the Nuclear Regulatory Commission on small modular reactor regulations. The states, so this isn't like we were just talking about how the small modular reactor communities don't have applications into the regulatory agencies. They have an enormous amount of money. They don't want to spend a nickel. They want to be, and they're going to use plutonium mixed oxide fuel, and they're going to take the nuclear regulatory, who probably told them to do it anyway, to court to get rid of any regulations. They're going for the kill on the planet. They already got it anyway, but they want to rush it, I guess. The states of Texas and Utah and microreactor developer Last Energy and corporations are challenging the U.S. regulator over its application of a rule it adopted in 1956 to small modular reactors. So the law was 1956. And they want to get rid of any regulatory laws. They don't want to pass any inspections. They want to be able to do whatever they want. They don't want to go through any test reactors. They just want to be able to. And you know what? They got all the money they ever wanted, and they still can't produce nothing. They've been at it for 80 years. They still can't produce a small modular reactor. Like, you have to be literally stupid not to appreciate what's really going on. And research and test reactors. So they want the rules of small modular reactor research and test reactors removed so they can use their plutonium mixed oxide fuel alongside of your schools and everywhere else, your drinking water supplies, your food sources. Under the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission's Utilization Facility Rule, all U.S. reactors are required to obtain a Nuclear Regulatory Commission construction operating license regardless of their size, which is 100% appropriate. 1,000,000,000%. They shouldn't be allowed to get any license. And the amount of nuclear material they use or the risks associated with that operation. They want all of it removed. Because there's no way they're going to come up with a product anyway. And even if you do remove all the rules, you're still not going to come up. But you got to have the rules because it's nuclear industry. Not that they're going to... It just takes them longer before they can get away with killing you, right? It's not much, but it's something. The plaintiffs say this imposes complicated, costly, and time-intensive requirements that even the smallest and safest small modular reactors and the smallest and safest. How can you quantify calling something safe when you haven't even built one, and when it's impossible to make a reactor safe? It's just you can't contain it. And microreactors, down to those not strong enough to power an LED light bulb, must satisfy to secure the necessary licenses. Yeah, what's wrong with that? Everything has the process, but you're the only industry that doesn't want any checks and balances. And you don't want to even to abide by the simple stuff. You can remove all those restrictions for them if you want to, but they're still not going to produce anything. They want to build their test reactors right in your community. They don't want to build it anywhere. They want to build it. If it melts down, too fucking bad. And there's no indemnity laws to hold them accountable anyway, right? This does not only affect microreactors, existing research and test reactors like those at universities in Texas and Utah, everywhere else face significant costs to maintain their Nuclear Regulatory Commission operating licenses. Yes, and rightfully so. Otherwise, all of you idiots will be building them everywhere. In the filing, Last Energy, developer of a pressure water reactor, 20 microreactor, says it has invested tens of millions of dollars in developing. Really? They invested it? Whose money did they invest again? The taxpayers' money? In developing small nuclear reactor technology. Well, we don't see any evidence of that narrative whatsoever, including USD $2 million in manufacturing efforts in Texas alone. So what? It has agreements to develop more than 50 nuclear reactor facilities. Yeah, but you're being paid to do it. Not coming out of your pocket. You're just worthless scum. Across Europe. Because Europe doesn't have the restrictions, see? That's why they're going to these random countries that have nothing. It's because they don't have to build a test reactor and get the kinks out of it. And although it has a preference to build in the United States, Last Energy nonetheless has concluded it's only feasible to develop its projects abroad in order to access alternative regulatory framework, where they don't have to have any permits, that incorporate a de minimis standards for the nuclear power permit. In other words, no regulatories whatsoever. Knowing that only 3 new commercial reactors have been built in the United States over the past years. Yeah, Watts Bar took 44 years, was it? Or 40 years? The plaintiffs, which is not bad for a nuclear, really. Says building a nuclear, and that was only to make, that's what they produced tritium for their bombs, by the way. That's what the Watts Bar 2 was. To produce, it's a tritium breeder. Disgusting parasites. A new commercial reactor of any size in the country has become virtually impossible due to the rules, which it says is misreading of the... It's not... Just because they say it, it's not true. It's not virtually impossible due to the rules. They stole all the money. That's why it took so long and so much money to build those couple of reactors. It was nothing to do with the rules. You're worthless. They're just worthless scum. Which just says is a misreading of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission's own scope of authority. Houston, Texas-based law firm King and Spalding said the lawsuit, if it was successful, would mark a turning point in the U.S. nuclear regulatory framework, but warns that it could also create greater uncertainty as advanced nuclear technology gets closer to commercial readiness. What are you talking about? Like, geothermal is everywhere, and its day is right around the corner. It's been suppressed now for hundreds of years by the oil companies and everybody else, but now its time is coming. Anything a small modular reactor or an idiot micro reactor can do, geothermal can do it 12 years quicker and do it forever without any adverse effects, without poisoning the biosphere and the ecosystem and all the fresh water and ocean on the entire planet. So why not use geothermal? Why would you use nuclear? They can't control the emissions from the nuclear fuel pools. They're splitting atoms. So they've got no right to exist. When they say nuclear fuel is dangerous when you take it out of the reactor, there's no containment, it's still splitting atoms. That's why they're surrounded by farms as far as you can see. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission is already addressing the issue. In 2023 began the rulemaking process to establish an optional technology-inclusive regulatory framework for new commercial advanced nuclear reactors, which included risk-informed, performance-based methods, flexible, practical for applications of veritable variety of advanced reactor technologies. A proposed rule, risk-informed, technology-inclusive regulatory framework for advanced reactors currently open for public comments until 28th of February. So if you send them an email, then they'll block that email forever after, right? That's all they're trying to do. They might, like in local areas where they're going to do this, they'll have so-called activists will set up booths in the malls and that, and ask you like sign this petition to get rid of small modular reactors. So people will go sign it, and then all those emails they have to give your emails. Everybody's email then gets blocked by the nuclear industry. Like they got so much money that there's nothing too evil to do. There's nothing. They like to cover every base, and so they do. And there's just millions of these scumbags out there they'll attack me for free just for kicks. And the NRC said it expects to issue a final rule no later than the end of 2027. The lawsuit has been filed with the U.S. District Court in the Eastern District of Texas. Well, the judge should throw that out right away. Get the judge to watch one of my programs, the judge will throw that out right away. Will Iran build a nuclear bomb while Trump is in power in the United States? So what that story is suggesting that Iran is going to assemble a nuclear bomb in the United States itself. Because like somewhere in the next few days, Iran is going to hit Israel back. That's for sure. Before Trump takes the seat, right? Because Iran has already made it clear they want to hit Israel back. Because it was Biden's administration that gave Israel the weapons to attack them. Therefore, it should be Biden's administration in power when they attack and when they hit Israel back. Israel is an idiot. They're just idiots. The Israelis are idiots. They got tens of thousands of prisoners from Palestine, mostly children, around 6,000 children. But they want their 100 captives back, they said. That's what this is all about. They destroyed the whole country, turned it to dust. They destroyed the whole Palestine. It's destroyed. Everything's gone. Everything's flattened. And they're targeting the kids on the street. The snipers are just horrific monsters. We covered this one story where this sniper up on Twitter and Facebook, his personal Twitter and Facebook, with a picture of him behind his sniper gun saying, I killed 13 Palestinian children today, laughing about it. Not shooting Hamas. U.S. leaders, along with Israel, the world's stupidest country, have been openly discussing military strikes on top of Iranian nuclear facilities, critical infrastructures like power plants and oil and petrochemical facilities. The population, I looked it up, in Iran is 86 million people. So they're going to do collective punishment against 86 million people. So, the problem with that story is if they do that, Iran's going to destroy their nuclear facilities and energy facilities and ports too, right? Iran has hypersonic missiles. Israel can't stop Iran's missiles. Iran allegedly, now I've listened to the reliable sources, right, from the countries that speak English, and they've been building these underground networks of tunnels since 9/11, right? And they have thousands of miles of underground tunnels. They have underground cities. All their enrichment, everything is actually done on deep underground. They can nuke it all they want. They're not going to get to it. But they also have just millions and millions of high technology drones, like suicidal drones, and they have millions and millions of missiles. And they have thousands of miles of tunnels, and anywhere along that tunnel they have ways of launching missiles. And so the story is, because they have full production now going on, that they can sustain, what was it? 100,000 drones a week and 100,000 missiles a week for years, 2 or 3 years straight. But they're still going to be producing them at the same time, deep underground. So they might be able to keep it up for 4 or 5 years. But what they said was Israel is going to regret attacking them. And so most likely they're going to take out their power supply, their water, their infrastructures for wharfs. Because Israel only got a few small major wharfs, right? If you take them out, you cripple them. Take out their pipelines. Then they're going to attack also the energy, the gas and oil ships, or oil ships. They're going to sink them. And the oil fields. And that means you're going to be paying $20 a gallon to $30 a gallon within a month or weeks of that starting up. And so it's not looking good. U.S. leaders, not the country, but the leaders, a handful of people, along with Israel, the moron society. My goodness, they're stupid people, aren't they? Like, it's hard to have any compassion for them. They're so stupid, so dangerous, and they're so vicious. They're literally the idiots of society. Like, all the village idiots seem to go to Israel and hang out and live there. Have been openly discussing military strikes on top of uranium nuclear facilities and critical infrastructure like power plants, oil, and petrochemical facilities. Iran's just going to just immediately the same day or the day after do the exact same thing to them. Which is appropriate. That's what should happen to them. They've never been attacked back. They've been the scumbag of that area for so many decades. They've never taken a beating a single time. You do the same thing back to Israel as they're doing right now, you won't be doing it anymore. See, there's no checks and balances, right? They've never felt what it's like to be on the other side of the bombs. For more than 2 decades, Iran's relationships with the West was largely been defined by developments in the country's nuclear programs and efforts to stop it from getting a bomb. Yeah, they've had Iran on their land, sea, air embargoes, 48 military bases on their borders from Britain, France, and America. Iran hasn't attacked anybody. And then there's the scumbags, the worst humans imaginable, like Rafael Grossi. Truly, anything to do with the International Atomic Energy Agency is a worthless parasite. And Trump is gonna get down on the knee and kiss Benjamin Netanyahu's nutjob's ring. Israel just screwed over everybody and every species on the planet, haven't they? Nano nuclear energy trading down 5.8%. What's next? Why is nano nuclear energy on the stock market? It doesn't even have a product. People are buying stocks unless you're going to leave the stocks there for 40 or 50 years and hope that they last that long. Like they only got a cash flow, like their cash reserve is only around $12 million. Not 12 billion, but 12 million. Do you got any idea how quick they can go through that money and then go bankrupt? That's what they always do. But they got a Ponzi scheme now where the 14 financial institutes are buying stocks for a couple of weeks before they sell them, and it makes it look like their stocks are good. And then they go back down, then they go up, then they go back down. They do it over and over and over every 2 or 3 weeks post Conference of Parties 29, United Nations. In 2024, right? Nanonuclear energy trading is down. Of course it's down. Time to sell. Why would you buy? You only like because they don't understand what's going on, that they haven't got a product. But a sharp investor is not going to buy nano or small modular reactor stocks. My goodness. And it's kind of a breakdown where you got different companies buying stocks and then selling them. Why are they able to sell stocks? Because the media is out there pushing them to the small mom and pop investors who don't know any better. H.C. Wainwright reiterated a buy rating instead of $50 price objective on the shares of nano nuclear energy in a research note on Wednesday, November 27th. But how could you quantify that when you don't even have a product and not going to have a product? It will take them a decade and billions of dollars, not 12 million, but billions of dollars to even come up with a test reactor. The firm's 50-day moving average price is $25.30. Its 200-day moving average is $19. Right? And so what they're doing is they're just buying stocks for 2 weeks, the big financial institutions, and then dumping it the following week and selling and stealing mom and pop investors' life savings. With no intentions of building a reactor. Why are they on the stock market? It's absurd. It's just heartbreaking. I'm going to build UFOs. Can I get on the stock market, please? I never said when. A couple of 100 years maybe I'll build them. I'll get around to it in 1,000 years. The company reported earnings per share of 0.08 cents. 8 cents earning per share for the quarter. So you made 8 cents on each share, but you got to spend. They want to drive it up to $50 a share. You got to spend $28 to make 8 cents. And then you can see like the different companies, right? Because they're buying shares in all the small modular reactor companies. They artificially inflate and make them all look like a win. Nano gets a big chunk of the pie, see? Being a scumbag is easy, right? Being a good person is supposed to be easy, but a scumbag can't be a good person. It's not in their DNA. Governor says drone spotted over Louisiana nuclear power plant. Here's what we know. Don't know. Their origins remains a mystery to the state itself and the local authorities. We've been asking the FAA to give these states the ability to mitigate these drones. They were seen flying over Entergy's Riverbend nuclear disease factory. And Harvard said he and the sheriff, Spillman, have been in direct contact with federal and state authorities about the drones, which he believes to be as big as 5 feet in diameter. Who knows? Enron egg parody stunt shows us how ridiculous nuclear small modular reactors can be. That's quite the interesting statement, right? He does this whole Recently, one of my kids came to tell me about the eggs by Enron. He's too young to remember the original Enron, who stole $10 billion of the investors' money, which the 14 biggest financial institutions are now doing through the small modular reactor companies. They're the new Enrons. And he didn't know that the new Enron website is a parody. More on that here. So when he saw a video announcing the Enron egg, a portable nuclear reactor, he thought it might be real. Yeah, they love targeting the children, don't they? A nuclear reactor to power your home. But he's hilarious. He done a great job, eh? Don't worry, you can't melt down. You can't do this. It was priceless. Control rods and fuel rods. And he covered it all, eh? Heavy water. Main water tank holds primary coolant under high pressure to avoid boiling. It's hilarious. The Enron egg. In a TED Talk style presentation, the fake CEO tells us about a nuclear device that's supposedly safe to keep in your home with the family. It supposedly generates up to 200 amps of power for at least 10 years. Inside the rendering shows a uranium zirconium hydride fuel reactor. They're supposed to be more safe and efficient. These are supposed to be inside of boron control drums for regulation and avoiding meltdowns. A small TV screen gives data for users and devices monitored 24/7 by Enron. A name we can all trust, right? And the coolant is supposed to be heavy water, plus the fuel is supposed to be only 20% enriched uranium. 20%. Like typically it's 3%, right? Which is the CEO says is too low for conversions into a nuclear weapon. Of course, 20% is a nuclear weapon. There's a big dirty bomb on top of that. 1,000-year-old coin hoard found at a nuclear... This is Hinkley. Stupid Hinkley in UK. Man, that's such a stupid site, isn't it? Found at a nuclear power plant site stuns the explorers. Includes coins produced at 30 different mints across England. They call them in mint shape. I guess they are fairly mint shape for their age. Oh, this is Sizewell C, rather. I'm sorry. Like that's ever going to come to fruition. An impressive hoard of 321 coins in mint condition. Oh, I wouldn't go that far with it. They're not bad, though. United States lifts 200 restrictions on Indian nuclear entities. Because they had sanctions against the nuclear entities. They were considered basically terrorist organizations. But now terrorist organizations, Joe Biden, what a friggin' disaster. Dana, you got nothing to talk about. You got Justin Trudeau over there in Canada. So shut your pie. I know. I'm sorry. Drones were spotted over a nuclear plant. Jeff Landry wants the state authority to take them down. You see farmland in the background. While we were dealing with a terrorist attack in New Orleans, we had drones being flown over our nuclear reactors in Louisiana. Yeah, well, you don't need to fly drones over the reactors. You just got to chop off external power and the 2 gas oil coal plant transmission lines, and welcome to the meltdown heaven. Everybody gets a free dose of iodine. The whole thing is very confusing, right? The safety and security of their employees and the plants, the communities are top priorities. If that was true, you wouldn't have fuel pools on this planet, let alone that site, would you? These are such morons to think that the fuel pools are not splitting atoms and that the atoms are going to turn to fairy fucking dust or something. Utah wants small nuclear reactors and it's inserting itself into a Texas fight to make them easier to get. Yeah, this story is interesting. Last Energy, a startup that makes nuclear micro-reactors. They don't make nuclear micro-reactors. Nobody's making reactors. How can they be making any? Last Energy Incorporated. Remember Safe Nuclear? That just went bankrupt. There were some scumbags too, weren't they? I know the one guy used to harass me, told me he's got 26 old muscle cars in mint condition in his garage. He lives on this big acreage, and it's just beautiful. He calls me up and makes fun of me, right? And now you know why he got all those cars, because he stole all the money, the investors' money. That's the intentions of every one of them. Makes micro-reactors. No, they don't make micro-reactors. No one's making micro-reactors. Nobody's making small modular reactors. Anyway, that's called fraud. They should be charged under racketeering statutes. The people who wrote that article should be charged right away under the racketeering statutes. They're telling a lie, right? The lawsuit argues that small modular reactors and micro-reactors, which are cheaper, again, when the study was done on, when you scaled up small modular reactors, micro-reactors to a large reactor capacity, they were 20-something billion dollars or something. Not only that's going to produce 30 times more intermediate level waste, high level waste, 35 times more intermediate, which is brutal, and 5 times more fuel rods than a large reactor when you scale them up. Not only that, they're going to be using plutonium mixed oxide fuel, which is 1,000,000 times worse than the nightmarish stuff they're using in a typical reactor. And that the emissions from a typical reactor are 2 billion times more toxic than industrial poison. They use less nuclear fuel, do not threaten public health and safety. Of course they do. The less fuel is more toxic than the traditional fuel by 1 billion times. And that the threat to the public health is you can't contain the radiation. And that you want to put it in the communities themselves. And that you're monsters and scumbags, and why would anybody want to trust you? How can anybody ever trust you? Annual nuclear power plant emergency brochures are now available if you live within stupid land. Also note that potassium iodine tablets for people who live within 10 miles of emergency planning zones. Well, the emergency zone is to run away and not go back. That's every nuclear accident we've seen. The firemen can't put out a nuclear meltdown, okay? The police can't go and do anything, rescue anybody when there's a nuclear meltdown. It's just, they're going to run away like everybody else, okay? They're going to tell their loved ones first to run away before you block up the highway on top of that. There's nobody with an autoimmune trigger to defend against anthropogenic man-made releases. The iodine pills are not going to stop the rest of the gammas from going into the thyroid gland. It's not just iodine 131 that goes into a thyroid, which is a gamma. It's any gamma, like cesiums. And by the way, cesium pulses energy 600 feet every second. The iodine is still going to go somewhere else if it doesn't go in the thyroid gland. It's still going to end up in the pituitary gland, the adrenaline glands. It's a total fable to suggest that a thyroid or an iodate pills are going to mitigate a nuclear meltdown's effects, right? Potassium iodine is an over-the-counter mineral salt that can help protect the thyroid gland from absorbing radioactive iodine. She urges people to call and schedule time to pick up the tablets. Well, that's a racketeering statute, criminal law they're breaking there, because that stuff can't protect you. You can't just suggest that iodine is the only thing that's coming out of a nuclear meltdown. You got to take it 24 hours before there's a nuclear meltdown. On top of that, preferably 2 days before. It simply doesn't work that way, though, right? Because any gammas will go in the thyroid, not just iodine. A map of bus pickup points and evacuation routes with the emergency planning zones. You got to wait for a bus, like evacuation routes. When your coal plant breaks down, you don't got to evacuate. When your oil plant breaks down, you don't got to evacuate. When your gas plant breaks down, you don't got to evacuate. You don't got to run away and leave everything behind and never come back. How can you put something in your area where you got these particular attributes? How do you get that complacent, I wonder? How do you not fight tooth and nail to keep that away? Oh, no, nothing will happen. Nothing has ever happened, is it? First off, all nuclear power plants are hemorrhaging radiation from the fuel pools. They're splitting atoms. Hemorrhaging doesn't do what's really going on appropriate, I guess. There's massive plumes emanating every second from the fuel pools. And they circle the whole planet, but within 100 miles, there's brutal doses that bioaccumulate in everybody's house, everybody's garden, everybody's filters, everybody's drinking water, all your food sources. All your vehicles are covered in this stuff. If you wonder why there's massive amounts of heart and liver and lung and respiratory and pituitary and thyroid and adrenaline and Alzheimer's, dementia and autism, diabetes and Down syndrome and schizophrenia, and there's all these diseases that are just exploding, look no further than nuclear power plants. Because that's nuclear. And I mean, once your immune system is compromised, you're more susceptible to pathogens and viruses, right? That were normally harmless. Examples of protective actions that people could be asked to take during a radiological emergency. There is no protective actions. You don't got to take protective actions for a coal plant or an oil plant or a gas plant or solar or wind or anything else. Just stupid nuclear. It's stupid. They got to sell you a wolf ticket to get you to keep it in your communities. And that wolf will always come back and bite you and your loved ones for the rest of your life. The tool allows people to live in a 10-mile emergency planning zone. You really think this is limited to 10 miles? You think radiation says, oh, everybody stop, we're at the 10-mile limit? To type in their address and find out which emergency response planning area they're located in. It's up to you to be stupid. If you're in that area, get editor. Sell it and get editor. Try to sell it to a pro-nuclear. Make sure it's pro-nuclear. Are you pro-nuclear? Yeah, I'll give you a good deal. Shuttered Michigan nuclear plant gets $1.5 billion federal loan. Which turns out they don't have to pay back, of course. To restart operations by 2025. They got Bill Gates shithead there. It was shut down in 2022 due to faulty control rod drive seals. That's okay though. It's for AI, so fuck it. And it's located along Lake Michigan, the third biggest aquifer of fresh water in the entire planet. It's a scumbag industry, eh? Just a scumbag. There's so many scumbags you actually can't keep up with it. What's everybody doing? Let's look in the comment section. I gotta start going back to the comment section more often for people. Hi, Dana. Yeah, hi, Philip. Don. Colette. Don. James. Sandra. Canito. Did I get everybody? To search. Radium eye drops. Oh my God. James. Ugh. The king of one-liners, man. That guy, I'm telling you, really something. He's got a couple of new songs there too. We'll get to one of them. He's done an instrumental too. That was really good. atomic manhole cover. I flew up laughing when I seen the title. You just put out another one called Paper Suits. Paper Suits to Rigs or something. Gotta love it, eh? Keep her going here. President Biden's Investing in America agenda is supporting expanding the vibrant, clean energy workforce here in Michigan with significant funding for Holtec, a nuclear disease factory. Holtec, which is Chris Singh, right? He's the CEO, he's the president, the janitor, everything. He's an unbelievable scumbag, that guy. Why are nuclear stocks in a bullish territory of the U.S. markets? Here's the catch, the Economic Times. Nuclear power stocks are currently in great demand and things are looking quite promising. Of course, this is madness to suggest that's true, right? They're doing everything they can to rob the most vulnerable of society's investors. Nuclear power stocks are all the hype now at the U.S. stock market at this point. Yeah, because 14 financial institutes are doing the buy and dump routine every 2 weeks. A great sign that investors are moving. Nuclear stocks are expected to keep being bullishly growing at Wall Street for the better part of at least 5 months. Does anybody really think they're going to have a small modular reactor in 5 months? No. So why would you invest in small modular reactors? Does anybody think they're going to build one in 5 years? No. In 50 years? No. If you haven't built one in the last 80 years, they ain't going to build it. They're not trying to build it. They're not trying to build it. They're trying to get the money to build it, but they're not going to actually go build it. They're going to just steal that money. We know that because we've been watching them right since the big push from about 6 years ago. We've covered it all, non-stop for 6 years on the small modular reactor fable. Yes, nuclear power stocks are absolutely worth the purchase if it gives more stability aspects for growth in your portfolio. It's not stability and growth in your portfolio, it's loss in your portfolio, permanent loss of your large chunk of your money. So these people have no way to quantify that assertion, can be convicted under the racketeering statutes, right? Deep Fission partners with Rendezvous for nuclear project. Deep Fission was this company. They were going to bury nuclear waste down in boreholes, right? Wash their face and her father, Richard. I hate her. I just hate her guts. She's a fucking pig, that one. Deep Fission's reactor will be lowered on cables. They're going to lower their reactors on cables 1 mile deep. And put their reactors on cables 1 mile deep. What could possibly go wrong? They're going to put their reactors on cables and lower them down 1 mile in a borehole. They're just another scam, right? Like Ultra Safe Nuclear or Nano or NuScale. They're just a scam. The reactors are pressurized water designs, a common approach used in various applications. A steam generator paired with the reactor would turn heat into steam, which will be fed to the surface. Like if you're 1 mile down, just well to use geothermal, isn't it? I bet you that's what they're doing too. No, there's a reactor, one down there, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. In the United States, Deep Fission aims to switch on its first reactor in 2029. So they haven't even built a test reactor. They don't have an application into the regulatory agency to do neither either, which aligns with the plans for other companies in the industry. Elizabeth Muller, the co-founder and CEO, her dad is all the brains, not Elizabeth. Our technology not only ensures the highest level of safeties, really? You're going to put it a mile down in a hole in the ground? But also positions us to deliver zero carbon, continuous loop power at a cost of 5 to 7 cents per kilowatt. Sure you are. Why should anybody believe you? The co-founder and CEO, deeply stupid. We've been covering her since they started up their other company, right? It's a Ponzi scheme. Zero carbon. The original company, Deep Isolation, in 2016, remember that in 2016 when they showed up? We mocked them pretty darn good. To develop the concept of placing canisters of radioactive waste hundreds of meters underground via borehole. Yeah, we'll just dig big holes in the ground, drop it down in the hole. Have a nice day. Where's my paycheck? UK forges new radiation-resistant steel in step forward for fusion energy startups. UK forges new radiation-resistant steel in step forward for fusion energy. Radiation-resistant steel. Another one of these stories, eh? So the geniuses in the United Kingdom have forged 5.5 tons of a new kind of steel capable of withstanding the shearing heat and intensity of neutron radiation and nuclear fusion. The shearing heat, you're talking about absurd numbers for the heat. And the breakthrough is another boost to Europe's growing flock of fusion energy startups. There's over 100 of them now. They're all working on the same design from 1904. When running, it's all about just grabbing money and stopping other, like geothermal, from showing up, right? Oh, we'll get it someday. The plasma inside a fusion energy machine reaches temperatures of 150 million degrees Celsius. So what they're telling you that they've got a steel that can contain that is simply not true. That melts everything it touches. There's nothing on this planet can withstand 10 million degrees Celsius, certainly 150 million. Temporarily making them the hottest points in our solar system. And like this is a fantasy that they can contain that with magnets. That was a theory that they built the world's biggest magnets, and they still can't do it. It's ridiculous to suggest they can. On top of that, why would you bother when you got geothermal right at your fingertips? We'll suspend the plasma with magnets, joint magnets, in midair, keeping it away from direct contact with the metal walls. The same lie over and over and over. The walls are also cooled to stop them from overheating. Like you can't. How much water you got to use to cool a wall? Like 150 million degree temperatures underwater will still be 150 million degrees. Even if you surround it, put it in the bottom of the ocean. Like a nuclear reactor only burns at 9,000 degrees, but it can burn in the bottom of the ocean or deep into the earth. It doesn't need oxygen. So how is 150 million? Like the reason fusion works in space, right, like the sun, is because the sun is huge. It's huge. And it can expel excess energy millions of miles into space. Like we can't expel the extra energy in a so-called reactor, right? That's why it's not going to work. The biggest problem isn't the heat, the neutron damage. No, the biggest problem is the heat. Neutron radiation can quickly degrade the inner walls of the nuclear reactor through what's known as the Wigner effect, where you break down the integrity of whatever the wall is made of, right on an atomic scale. If you don't manage that, you'll be shutting down the fusion reactor regularly to replace the walls, which means you're not producing power during that time frame. Wow, genius! You're a genius, buddy. New steel can withstand high neutron load temperatures up to 650 degrees. Well, that's not good because you're talking about 150 million degrees. So 650 degrees, just because you can make steel that can handle that, you're still left with the equation of 150 million degrees, stupid. Again, right? Oh, they got new steel. It's a major breakthrough, but it's not, is it? So it can hold 650 degrees Celsius. Whoopie fucking do. Wow, 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 wow. When your fucking head falls off, give it a kick. Better yet, give it to me. I'll give it a fucking kick for you. Yeah, shit for brains. Anything to scam the investors, right? When running the plasma inside the fusion energy machine reaches temperatures of 150 million degrees. So, a few paragraphs before they write that, and then they tell you, well, the steel can handle 650, not million, but 650. Oh, yes, boy. You're special. You're a special fucking arsehole. For startups like Oxford University, spin out First Light. They're not the scam artists either, eh? Spin is more like it, isn't it? First Light. Despite the huge progress, fusion energy always seems to be 20 years away technology. No. The big joke in the fusion chat rooms is it's 50 years away. It's always 50 years away. Wow, we made it. How did we do? Pretty darn good or pretty darn good? Let's come over and read the poll one more time. Did fusion radioactive fallout, Fukushima fusion, did Fukushima radioactive fallout poison all men, women, kids, mammals, animals, insects, birds, etc. on Earth? Yes. Now don't worry if you weren't here to vote on that, because we're going to have that fucking poll every night for a very long time. Fuck them until they stop censoring me. Fucking scumbags. But there's always some good news. And this James got some more music out, so that's good. To me, that's good news, man. That is just wonderful. The only problem is we got 3 songs to choose from. I'm not very good. I gotta get 3 straws with 1 short one. And how is that gonna work on my disc? How can I not? Let me see. I think the volume would be okay. If the volume is too loud, I'm going to stop it. There's a toss-up. Look at this. You got 3.14 thousand subscribers. Holy shit, James. I'm going to play this one, From Rags to Paper Suit. I really like this one. This is fantastic stuff. Atomic Manhole cover. The fastest object in space is a manhole cover from a nuclear explosion, folks. Oh, yeah, and he done an amazing job on Sweet Nuclear Lies. And we're going to play this song. I'll come back and close the poll. And we'll see everybody tomorrow night.
Beneath the shroud of twilight, where the city murmurs low, a wanderer drifts in silence, where forgotten spirits flow. But then a hand of mercy, with a voice of honeyed grace, whispered of a sanctuary, a refuge from the chase. He grasped the phantom promise, felt warmth in barren veins, a covenant of shadows to soothe the endless pains. They spoke of light and shelter, of bread to ease the mind, but beneath their gilded words lay truths of a darker kind. In the catacombs of the reactor where the light dies slow. He labored in the silence where shadows grow. Ashes of broken promises, adrift in the gale, and the soul that sought salvation found only betrayal. Through days of ghostly toil, beneath the reactor's breath, he sensed the creeping specter, the silent hand of death. The warmth of their illusions dissolved in the haze, now lost within the labyrinth of their insidious maze. They draped him in deception like a shroud of deepest night, spoke of safety, spoke of care, but banished every light. His strength turned to whispers as his spirit frayed in the garden of forsaken where the nameless lay. In the catacombs of the reactor where the light dies slow, he labored in the silence where shadows grow. Ashes of broken promises, adrift in the gale, and the soul that sought salvation found only betrayal. Catacombs of the reactor where the light dies slow, he labored in the silence where shadows grow. Ashes of broken promises, adrift in the gale, and the soul that sought salvation